Please welcome back Deb Brody.
I'm too short. So that'll do. Okay, thanks. So thank you, Rick, and thank you, Sue, for your very compassionate, very heartfelt, and very wise words. And I also want to offer thanks for this day, for the earth that holds us up, for the sky that gives us shelter, for all of the living things around us that give us light. And may I also wish to offer thanks to every one of you who are here with your love and your purpose and your dedication. So I believe, like many, if not all of us, it was an extremely distressful week for me. I have been filled with all of the fears that have been mentioned, and probably many that have not. And I have also been seeking for some good or reasonable words to help me pass through this. And I did encounter an article which I shared with my friends on the DTC, and it seems to have kind of spread out since then, and that is what I've been asked to speak about. So in order to help folks to find this article, you can find it on the internet. It's on a website called wagingnonviolence.org, and the title of the article is 10 Ways to be Grounded and Prepared Now That Trump Has Won. So I'm not going to read the article. I think each person can read it and kind of gain their own substance from it. But I would like to offer to you sort of what that article meant to me. And the first way that it's cited of what to do to help us be grounded and prepared is about trust. And that actually really reminds me of something that I heard 6 years ago at a forum held by the International Women's Strike, and a woman who was active in New Haven Black Lives Matter at the time, she said, "Move at the speed of trust." And those words have really stayed with me like forever. But what did this article mean when they talked about trust? Well, first of all, to trust ourselves. We live in an environment where there is a lot of falsehood, and it sometimes is hard to find truth, and I think that one step is to trust ourselves. When somebody tells you don't believe your eyes, look harder. When somebody tells you what your common sense is telling you is not true, something else is true instead. Stay strong and trust yourself. Now, the other side of that coin is to be trustworthy, and that means to speak the truth, and it means to hold your word, and be careful with your word. Sometimes we agree to things too quickly and we can't accomplish it. So that's my first takeaway from it, is about trust. Trust yourself and be trustworthy. The second item that they spoke of was to seek out people whom you can trust. And to me, that means actually to reconnect. I think a lot of times we get separated from people because we're busy, or maybe we have some differences of opinion, or we get preoccupied with other things. So I think now especially is a time that we can reconnect with each other, return to community, reclaim our community, and recommit ourselves to our socially purposeful life. I know that all of us are committed to that. And it's a time that we can recommit to that by joining with others. And then the other thing about community and reconnecting and finding trustworthy people is having to do with conflict resolution. A lot of times, colloquially in this country, conflict resolution is one side wins over the other. And I wonder if there's a different way we can do that as a calling back to calling back to be part of a shared community together. So the third item is something that we're all dealing with right now, and we've already had folks saying among ourselves, you know, we are grieving and we should feel it, and this article also ratifies that. And I think in addition to being honest and feeling our feelings and being able to share them with each other, is to understand that feeling goes beyond emotion. It has to do with spiritual energies and alternate consciousnesses, and being able to feel the life around us, which is not just human life, but all life. That can give us a great deal of strength, and I hope to be open to that. The fourth item is to release, and specifically, like the Serenity Prayer, to release those things that we can't do anything about. And, you know, like the Serenity Prayer, we need a little bit of wisdom to discern which those are. But again, for me, this has to do with relinquishing the illusion of control. We cannot control what is happening, but we can make choices of what we will do. And if we relinquish the desire and the illusion to control, then we have greater power to choose what we will do. The fifth item is to find your path. And this really reminds me of a book that I read when I was a kid, which is The Sacred Pipe, The Seven Rites of the Oglala Sioux, and Lakota. And one of the rites, a very important one, is crying for a vision. And to me, that is what finding one's path means, is to go with great humility and seek, what is my path? What is the thing that I should do? And the suggestions made in the article is protect people, strengthen civic frameworks, build alternatives to the dominating order, and disrupt and disobey where necessary. And I would like to ratify all of those, but most specifically with regard to strengthening civic frameworks. We want to strengthen civic frameworks that prefigure the world that we want, not just civic frameworks which have actually not served us, even though they may be covered in pretty words. So that requires a lot of critical thinking. Next, it says to be courageous, and specifically don't obey in advance. Once we know what's coming, it's very, it's very easy to feel afraid to stay with our convictions or to be loud and proud about it. But I think it is indeed very important not to obey in advance. We have to be strong in who we are. The seventh is to reorient the political map, and that specifically is having to do with who we will find that we can work with. A lot of times we feel that we're not aligned with other people or they're not aligned with us, but this is a call to find common ground. Because in fact, all of us, no matter where we are on the political spectrum, we are suffering right now. We are suffering under the impending horror, and it's happening right now, of climate disaster. We are struggling under the problem of, geez, can I afford to live indoors? I can now, but if something bad happens, what will happen to me? What will happen to me if I get sick? Can I afford to eat the way that I'm accustomed to? All of these things are fears that we all share in common. So we have the opportunity to find a common path out. 8 is to get real about power. I think a lot of times a great deal of attention has been invested in what we say or feel about a thing, that we should be fair, we should be tolerant, we should be this, we should be that. And as long as people are saying that, then we feel, okay, this is what we need and this is what we're asking them for. But in fact, that doesn't build for us the power to actually change the world, and they're not using their institutional power to change the world because there are other powers controlling them. So I think, again, harking back to what was said 6 years ago in that meeting, the Forum for the International Women's Strike, we need to embrace the understanding of power that comes from our positions of not having power. And I think for those of us who are white, who belong to the middle class, who have enjoyed a relatively secure life, who have been relatively protected by structural and institutional frameworks, we may not realize how much power is actually not ours, but residing elsewhere, and we're just lucky that they're not after us yet. So I think we need to reassess our actual power and then understand that we need to get power so that we can make the world that we want. And then number 9, it says make intimidation and violence rebound. Now this is kind of a difficult one, but it has to do with not being afraid when we're being threatened. That's hard, so we need solidarity with each other. And it also has to do with sometimes turning the other cheek, sometimes, what we say or how we say it, so that violence or aggressiveness or intimidation, which is directed at us, gets redirected. And then lastly is that we need spiritually to dwell within the world that we envision. If we stay too attached to what we're seeing around us, then we can't see where we're going. So I have this wish for all of us that we can dwell in the world that we envision, because that's where our peace is, that's where our purpose is, and that's where our strength is. Thank you all.